So before we start, does anyone have any questions from doing the coursework or from practice or from the last session?
No, only I think I already put it on there that the 3 that I did, I managed to send them all to sleep. So, I mean, I don't know. My son, literally within like 3 seconds, was snoring. Dolly, sit down. So, like, I literally just started.
That's good. That shows he's comfortable, and it's actually a compliment when you're a hypnotherapist and you get told that your voice sends people to sleep.
Okay, right. Okay.
But it's because you're working with people who are they already know your voice, they're already familiar, and so he's probably very relaxed anyway and in that suggestible state. So when you have someone come and see you who's anxious about the process and who's completely new, they're not usually going to fall to sleep unless you take them. Men are more likely, or some people do fall to sleep, but like I said, if you see, so it's really important that you see their hands. You can simply say, I realize the lights not very good in here. You can say, just raise your finger if you can still hear me. Raise your finger if you can still hear me, and if they don't, just click your fingers to get their attention. Raise your finger if you can still hear me, and then they'll move their finger, and then you carry on from where you left off.
I shouted his name. I think I was scared. He was like jumped out of his skin.
You don't really want to startle people.
Yeah. So anyway. But then he did go back. So then, like, because I said his name quite loud, right? This was right in the induction. And then we did the deepener and he went again. So he fell, like, literally went straight to sleep again.
Yeah.
So I just clicked my fingers and then.
So there's techniques where you bring people out, like I said, then put them back in, and every time they'll go deeper into that feeling. So he probably went even more asleep the next time.
Yeah.
At least you can help him if he's can't sleep.
Yeah, my daughter has found it very useful with her insomnia.
Oh,
I'll do the reading, I'll put her in, do the induction, then do the deepener, and then I leave her with the suggestion you will sleep very soundly and throughout the night. And she has said she really does help her.
Perfect.
So that has been good.
Great.
So I've used the falling asleep to my advantage there.
So Lulu, have you managed to get any practice in?
I haven't been able to practice on anyone, but I did it's kind of like figuring out like my own induction, like visualization one, and I like recorded it and listened to myself back, but I just been really busy the last week or so I haven't had a chance to actually practice on anyone else.
That's okay. I saw in the group you're planning to meet up, so that's good.
Yeah, that would be really useful actually if we could. However many who are local, that would be great. I mean, I've got an empty space at home pretty much all the time. So if anybody wanted to do it here, with the kids, I'm just here on my own, me and the dog. So if anybody wanted to do that, I think that would be really useful.
Definitely.
Kathy, how you managed to get practice?
Yeah, I've done quite a lot actually. So I've been pleased.
Good. On your husband?
Yes. I did one on him last night to try and get him to think he can speak French. And the nurse came this morning and he did speak to her in French. So
wow.
Good. Increasing confidence.
Yeah, but also I asked him what made him think he couldn't speak French, and he went back to this horrible German teacher he had when he was about 11.
And it's already doing the regressions. Good. It's interesting where people's minds go when you just allow them and you get that confidence of not being on script and you're simply saying what's blocking you. It's as simple as that really. When they're in that suggestible state, their mind's more open. He probably wouldn't have even thought of that when he was in a normal everyday brain state.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike, how have you been getting on?
I had every intention of doing some work on the weekend, but the weekend came and gone, and suddenly we're at Tuesday and I haven't done anything. One thing, I'm struggling to think of people I can kind of practice on, just because I a lot of my friends might be thinking it's kind of a bit kind of wacky. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm. Well, we can always put a thing out on a Facebook group or Instagram or something when we're a bit further along to get new, fresh faces. I had a lady call me and she was desperate to go back to sleep, but she, had Googled and heard me on a podcast or something, and she couldn't quite afford sessions, bless her. And I just felt, you just feel so bad. So I said maybe we could do a demonstration or we can work on her to help her sleep at the time, and she was so grateful for that. So I think introducing people outside of the group will really help us when you're doing live demos and things like that. They'll get something out of it, we'll get something out of it. Either someone can help her from the group, or I can do it as a live demo, or we can do a mixture of the two. But yeah, we can always recruit. There's always people that want to be helped. Maybe when we're a bit further along, we can do that.
Where are you, Mike?
I'm in my apartment, obviously.
No, I don't mean now. This second, I mean,
London, not far from Earls Court.
Okay, so I'm in Fulham. I'm in Parsons Green.
All right, okay, nice area.
Not far from you.
Yeah, I'd rather practice on people in the group or total strangers rather than friends, just because I don't want them thinking certain things of me or vice versa and that kind of thing.
It's hard. I remember when I was first practicing and I did one on my brother, and it's like he was just laughing and it put me off, and it's like he doesn't think of you as a therapist. And one of the scripts was, I remember very vividly actually, it said you feel your tongue in your mouth, and he was like, oh, you don't normally notice your tongue in your mouth, and normally people wouldn't. We were just laughing and it just didn't work at all. So it's how people perceive you and how people see you, whereas your friends see you as your mates. So and even now when my friends have got problems, like when you first start doing this, you want to hypnotize everyone, but you don't, like, you want to keep it separate to your friends, really, because you want them to see you as your friend. So
yeah, my son was laughing for the first 2 minutes, and we had to keep restarting. And he said, "You sound like one of those." He said, "You sound like one of those sleep things that I listen to on YouTube." Things. I thought, oh my god, I'm obviously trying to put on him. So then I thought, right, I'm just going to use my normal voice, and that's when he literally just went. So, but I suppose, like you say, it's because he's familiar anyway, and
I remember my first recordings I made. I was speaking.
I know, that's what I think. Oh my god!
And I remember someone saying, "Why are you speaking so weirdly?" Finding that voice of being relaxing and calming without being too much. But you'll find that you'll get it. It will be natural. Okay, so any more questions? Okay, wonderful. So let me share this. And I'm going to put that on one view. If it will go to just me, it's on Mike at the moment. Mike, is that because I need to mute you?
Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's still not going to me for some reason. Okay. It might have to just be that. Okay. Right. So, module 2, week 4, part 1. Can't believe we're in week 4 already. Okay, so the aims of today, go over the learning objectives for this module, what we're going to be going over, a recap of what we did in the last week, going over the critical faculty, just because that is so important. That's the bit, that's part of our mind that's going to stop the new suggestions from entering our minds, and that's what we're going to be working with. Post-hypnotic suggestions, suggestibility and tests. And I know I've spoken to you guys a little bit about this already, and I did encourage you to try and do something last week, but I've given you some scripts we're going to be doing some properly today. And also, again, which we've already talked about, but going into more detail, the signs and cues of hypnosis. So just knowing when somebody is going into that state, so you can manage how far you've already probably gauged an idea of how you can use your voice and your words to take people into a relaxed state, but it's learning how deep they're going and learning to look at that person and see and read cues. So this is why it's important to get away from scripts as soon as we can, really, because your focus needs to be as much as we can on that person, looking for those cues. I know, I think you said you mentioned some twitching, which and things like that, and we can go over some other signs, but just knowing when people are relaxing and being able to watch out for those cues. Okay. So in module 1, we looked at how our minds create problems. Then we looked at all the models of the mind so we can understand what's going on a deeper level. So what's happening in our minds in that library model and our belief systems that create the problems that people are coming to you. So we're going to look at looking more deeply at how we create them. Now we need to look at how we can help them solve them. So in module 2, we're going to look at post-hypnotic suggestions and reducing the critical faculty so we can help people accept new ideas on a deeper level. So we're going to help people solve these problems and some simple practical methods for helping people to relax into hypnosis, deepen and release, which we've already started to do. So module 2 is all about structuring a session and helping people bring about a change. And some of you have already started using suggestions, which is great. You're one step ahead, which is perfect. You're really understanding like the purpose of why we're taking people to that relaxed state. So we take people to that relaxed state, we lower the resistance. The critical faculty can also be called resistance. We lower the resistance so they accept the new ideas. So by the end of this module, you will have an understanding of the role of the critical faculty, which we've already started working on. Have an understanding of post-hypnotic suggestions. Have an understanding of suggestibility and suggestibility tests, which I know we've already spoken about, but it's how you can use these more if you're going to do group presentations or things like that. So just a little bit more information on those. So be able to perform the suggestibility tests and have an understanding of the cues when somebody's entering hypnosis, and to be able to complete a whole client consultation. So at the end of this module, you'll have all the information you need to see a client, put them into know their problem, put them into a relaxed state, deepen them into the place they need to go to make the change, give them the suggestions, and then release them. So you'll be able to conduct a full session. Oh, and also the student insurance. So when we are working with volunteers outside of our group, we will need insurance. It's really cheap. I think it's like £7 a year, 70, it may have gone up, 17 or something. Just liability insurance, but it's really cheap because nothing bad's ever really come from a hypnotherapy session. Okay. So just to recap, can anyone remember what we mean by the critical faculty? And I have already mentioned it, but does anyone want to just reiterate or go over what we mean by that?
Is it the critical part of our the thoughts and things?
Yeah.
Like beliefs you hold that may not necessarily be true.
You need to bypass it, don't you, to try and get.
Yeah.
It's the analytical part of your brain that would be analyzing constantly. So we'd have to bypass that to get to the subconscious.
Yeah, you could see it that way. That's a very how I see that part. It's the thinking part of the mind when we need to access our unconscious. For me, is based largely on our imagination and what's going on in our belief system. Is all created in our imagination. But yes, it's that part of our mind. If you remember the guard, that analogy of that guard that stops the ideas that we want to receive from going into the deeper parts of our mind. So it's that barrier that's stopping suggestions going in. And we can lower that depending on the issue and depending on the person, will depend on how strong that barrier is. So sometimes just putting people into hypnosis is just not enough. There will be more beliefs and more ideas that need to be bypassed in order to reduce that critical faculty so that we can then be open to receive and receptive to new ideas and new suggestions. And I just answered the question, why is it important when bringing about change? Which you said already, it's the part of your mind that's thinking, that holds, like Lulu said, it holds the belief systems that, you know, work against us. So it's really important. It's resistance. We can also see it as resistance.
So your critical faculty is automatically just associated with your past experiences, because it's based upon past experience. You've created these belief systems and this barrier, whether it's valid or not, but it is based upon past experiences.
Yeah.
Okay.
Things learned. Like a defense mechanism designed to protect us. It's full, you know, full job is a protection, because we've learned at some point that we're not safe. And a lot of this, and clients will come to you, it's about their feeling of safety and security in one area of their life. So it's so important that we reduce that, because the client needs to feel safe. And that's why you're relaxing them to a safe place, and you can take them to a safe place in their mind, and you want them to feel safe and relaxed so we can bypass the fear and bypass the resistance. But sometimes, like I said, it's not enough, because maybe that idea has been consolidated so much throughout the years, and they've gained so much experience that have told them that resistance and that they need protecting, whatever that situation is, whether it's from getting in a lift, driving a car, falling in love, so whatever it may be.
Just to check, is the critical faculty what kicks in when, say, you kind of like toe the political narrative or question COVID or question all sorts of things, and then someone kind of reacts to what you're kind of questioning? Is it a critical faculty that's like kicking in there?
So what would you, in what context? So say you're talking about COVID and somebody's...
It's a typical one. Say, I speak to my parents, they totally eat up the narrative, especially on COVID. I got different beliefs. I don't believe in getting vaccinated for it. I'm not reacting, but when I say that, they massively react and go crazy. So is that kind of critical faculty kicking in because I'm challenging their beliefs or something?
Yeah, it's different belief systems. So it's different points of view, because obviously there's health and there's it's the resistance to accepting new ideas. It's a difficult one, that question, because it's so controversial, and the whole COVID thing at the moment. But yeah, any resistance to accepting new ideas, and you know, if they're coming from a place of deep fear and they're really challenging and resisting, and there's any, you know, if someone's defensive or overprotective of a certain situation, they're guarded.
I mean, I'm not solely referring to COVID. Obviously, COVID brought about all this kind of strange behaviour that goes with it. But I know the political narrative, or if I'm Labour or Conservative or religions and all that kind of thing, if you've got a certain belief, is it a critical faculty that kind of conflicts with each other? And that's why...
Yeah, it's your defense system and your barriers. I'd call it, if somebody has I call people prickly if their critical faculty is very guarded, if someone's very guarded, and it's their guard. If someone has a guard up about anything, that's their critical faculty. And that's what accepts them accepting new ideas. So, if somebody's, say that people have really strong religious views and they can't understand why someone else would have other different views, they're not quite understanding, that they could have beliefs around, my way or the highway, and it's my, I can't accept anyone else's beliefs and things like that. You just don't know what people are protecting themselves from until you uncover it, until you speak to that part of their mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And it's usually fear based.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Or fear.
Yeah.
That's why it's good to see it as a security guard, because it's designed to protect us. So yeah. The door policy is the client's belief system. So when you bypass the client's resistance around a topic, you can accept the new ideas and update their belief systems. So putting people into hypnosis can be enough if it's a simple habit. I find for smoking, it's enough. We can just do suggestion work. If it's nail biting, that's a habit that they've picked up from their family when they were kids, or it's just a habit with no emotional attachment to it, then you can use simple suggestion, because it's not an emotive, it's not a fear-based impulsive behavior or reaction. So ideas won't stick if this security guard, if this defensive part of your mind. I also like to see it as a soldier battling. If that battling soldier or that security guard is too strong, the ideas will not stick. I'm losing the light here. Okay, so it's your aim to help the client create the state of mind where the critical faculty is reduced from this guarded to, okay, I'm free. And I quite like this little drawing because it's like doors open. So we block ourselves off from receiving things, from being open to things, ideas, new ways of thinking, new experiences, new thoughts, new feelings. We block ourselves just from our past experiences. But when we open the door, we gain a new freedom, and doors open when we release these blocks. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So our aim, this guy, we need to work through this, barriers. So a post-hypnotic suggestion is an instruction. So after you put a person into that hypnotic, theta, meditative, relaxed state, you suggest to them that they think or feel or behave in a certain way. You relax them, you relax the part of that mind, and you give them a new idea, a new belief, a new thought. But it has to be met without resistance. So this is why kids are so great to work with, because they haven't had years and years of experience or years and years of collecting up experience. Let me just go and turn on the lights. Just give me a moment here. That's better. You can see me now. Okay, so so that's why kids are so easy to work with, because that barrier, that security guard, the longer that security guard has been there, the more beliefs that security guard will have that you need helping and protecting, and he will be even more resistant, stronger, and there may be more to break down. So kids have had less experience and they're so easy to work with the younger they are. So say I get a 21-year-old, I know there's going to be less resistance than a 31-year-old because there's 10 years less years of experience. Or if you get an 11-year-old who has had a problem for 6 months, you know pretty quickly that you can help them change that problem because it's not that deeply ingrained. So for example, I had an 80-year-old client and she'd only stopped sleeping a few years ago when her friend had passed away. So we know that she's had 78 years experience of sleeping. So her resistance to sleep is not that strong. So it wasn't about the sleep, if that makes sense. Yes. 80 and they've had 80 years of, you know, not being able to sleep from a child, there's going to be more resistance. Okay. And people are more suggestible than others. And like I said before, 6 to 8% of the population are highly suggestible. So, and suggestibility can change over time, over people's lives. You know, research studies have shown that people go through different states throughout their lives. Most often than not, and from experience, between the ages of 5 and 12, you're the most highly suggestible. To work with from a client's point of view, as a patient, as a child, you learn to take instruction from other people around 7 or 8, so that's a good time. But just people in general, some people are more suggestible. But you will find that if somebody's come to you with a problem, then they have created that in their own mind. So they've been suggestible at some point to that idea. But it's just worth noting that if that person is very suggestible in that moment, because it will be easier to work with that client. Although it tends to have no correlation on how much resistance or how strong their critical faculty is. But for example, you know, some people are just more suggestive. You give them an instruction and they're more easily led. You know, we said when you look at research studies that say 6 to 8% of people are only hypnotizable, they're talking about they're highly suggestible, not hypnotizable, highly suggestible. You will tell them, someone will give them a command and they will act upon it. So, you know, people who act upon adverts. My mom's terrible. She'll hear an advert on the radio and won't be like, oh, we should get that. I'm like, Mom, you're so suggestible to things. So it's just how easily a person takes on new ideas. Okay, so you will find that people will take on post-hypnotic suggestions. So these ideas, they might not always be permanent. So you can give someone an idea, you can work with someone, you can help them, you can break down their critical faculty, and it may only last days, weeks, months, or years, that change. So when I'm spacing out sessions with clients, I like to do it bi-weekly, depending on what I'm working on, because sometimes if they have a really good first week and then slowly the guard will come back up and say, no, there's a problem here, I'm not accepting that. So suggestions may not always be permanent. And like with when you do a stop smoking, which is when we just use pure suggestion, and because we want long-lasting change, this is what we want with clients. We want them to have a long-lasting change. So we want the changes that we make to be permanent. So if suggestions are not permanent, there's always a reason. There's always a reason their mind is dismissing or rejecting that idea. But for example, you can see someone for smoking, you've done a pure suggestion and it's worked for a year or two and they've been triggered back into smoking. And that could be a trigger that you didn't quite cover, circumstances were different, or whatever it may be. And when I first got into experiencing hypnosis myself, I remember I'd go for sleep sessions. The hypnotherapist would suggest that I slept very well and it would work for few weeks, maybe months, and then it would wear off. But that's because there would be resistance there. The guard eventually finds his way back, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So repetition of these suggestions whilst in hypnosis is a good idea. And this can be good. I've never found it as beneficial, to be honest, as getting to the root cause, but you can repeat things over and over and over. And this is why a lot of hypnotherapists give out recordings to people, but then you don't want your client to become, reliant too much on a recording, especially if they've got deep resistance to something. But repetition is good, because what happens in repetition is, so say you relax the mind and you go into hypnosis, the more you practice a new thought, the more that neural pathway will strengthen and the old one will weaken. It just depends how strong the old one is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Did you find the root cause of why you weren't sleeping?
Oh yeah. So normally, my way of dealing with things for me is my sleep. So you tend to notice that people have different ways of coping with things when they feel anxious, but the main cause of insomnia is anxiety. Well, I'd also actually picked up ideas about sleep and things from when I was young, but the main cause of sleep problems is anxiety. So I know when I'm feeling anxious, my sleep is the first thing it's my body's way of telling me that I'm feeling anxious. So yeah, people have just different ways of thinking about it, but sleep's not really about sleep at all, really. It's our minds just not being able to relax. So that's all that is. And I do have a very good imagination. Okay, and another form of post-hypnotic suggestion is a shift in identity. So it's how that person sees themselves. If that person sees themselves as a smoker, or if they see themselves, just how they see themselves as a not confident person, then that's how they see themselves and that's the way they see the world. But we can suggest to them a new way of thinking. Post-hypnotic suggestions are actually the most beneficial when you've done the root cause work, when you've cleared the resistance, when you've knocked down the barriers, when you've knocked down the walls of the guard. Then your mind is really open to new ideas and these ways of new ideas. But we need to shift identity in how someone thinks and feels about themselves. Okay, so there are different instructions. So they're like instructions. And the more direct sometimes they are, the more resistant it can cause for some people. But some of these suggestions for surface level are: every time you see a cigarette, you'll take a deep breath and think no. So that's an example of a suggestion. It's a command, it's an instruction. Every time you see a cigarette, you'll take a deep breath and think no. So normally smokers will see cigarettes and think, I want that, I need that. But you can really, especially with smoking's a lot about suggestion work. If you want to do smoking, specialize in smoking, people can, or you will always find people that want to stop smoking. So it's good to master stop smoking. You always get lots of referrals when people stop smoking. Another suggestion: when you sit down to take your exam, you will remain calm, confident, and focused.
Oh, I'll be using that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that also can lead to a visualization of them then visualizing, but then that gets a bit further on. But it's a suggestion that when they take their exam, you will remain calm, confident, and focused. It's a new idea that you're suggesting to them when they're in a relaxed state, when their defenses are down. And you work with kids, which is great because their resistance is lower anyway. A phrase, Coué phrase, is every day in every way you are getting better and better. And that's quite a good one. You might hear that if you listen to any hypnosis tracks online. Every day and everywhere you are getting better and better. And here we can add in at accepting, love and praise. So every day and everywhere you are getting better at accepting, love and praise, or every day and everywhere you are getting better and better at believing in yourself. Every day and every way. I love it when things rhyme and I use alliteration. I love it. You will feel calm, confident, collected. I always try and make things sound a little bit rhymey. It can flow.
Random question, Fiona. Can the kind of top comment there about smoking and stopping people from smoking, can it work the other way, where you can encourage someone to do something like, I know, like kids don't like eating vegetables or sprouts, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do things to change their beliefs of or thoughts of, I don't know, eating veg or something like that?
Yeah, so that's called selective eating with kids, and that can it's normally a form of control when kids are selective eating. So, or it depends, because some you can get kids sometimes that don't like eat any vegetables at all. So, and I had a girl once that, who had a phobia of tomatoes. So things like food, you can say, although if they genuinely don't like sprouts, because sprouts may not be within their taste, but you could, and kids you usually don't really need to put into it, depending how old they are. But you can give them suggestions of, maybe this sprout can taste like, something lovely. I don't know. But it depends, and it's hard with that because it depends on personal preference, and it depends if they're doing it out of pure taste or because of a control thing. So you have to see, is this a way that this child's trying to gain control by not? Is there an issue here, or do they genuinely just not like sprouts?
Yeah,
it can be, kids and food. They can stick to one food group. They can not, they can reject eating any fruit and vegetables. There's a therapist called Felix, and his surname's Greek, but he was doing lots on the TV with kids and selective eating. And this is you working on a habit, so suggestions will be enough for selective eating for kids.
But not an eating disorder.
Sorry?
But not an eating disorder.
For a kid.
So for instance, like I was just thinking about what Micah just said. So for instance, if somebody wasn't eating at all, you couldn't just use this first suggestion every time you see food. You take a deep breath and say yes. You know what I mean? You wouldn't be able to use those sort of suggestions for an eating disorder.
So it depends what the eating disorder is, but usually no.
Yeah.
So eating disorder, anorexia is notoriously the hardest thing to treat. And it's never about food. Yeah. It's always about things and ideas. And, I've treated lots of anorexics, and their recovery is not immediate. It's not quick. It's not something like, it's not that impulsive behavior. Like, say you've got an eating disorder that's compulsive, like bulimia or overeating, that's quite, there's a sense of agency there and need to act. Whereas someone who is suffering with say anorexia, eating disorder, it's it can be about control, confidence. There's so many elements of it, and it's not only, it can be, but it's not about saying you will just eat food, because then that will gain their resistance. It's not about the food. It's never about the food. And with selective eating with kids, it can be a control thing, or it can just be that they've not opened their mind up to what it could be like to have a carrot, or it's all about just working with their imaginations and thinking what stories and ideas have they created that have caused this issue. And it's so hard. This is the thing with hypnotherapy. It's not like CBT, like there's a strict process to follow, because every client is different and every client has a unique belief and every client's soldier will be protecting them from different things. So that you can't really answer that. But I know that, yeah, eating disorder such as anorexia is not, the easiest thing to treat. But it usually is most common in girls, and it's most common in girls. I see lots of girls that have been to all girls schools and, all have had mothers that have been very fussy with their food, and it's just a learned way of behavior. So, which is just reframing their ideas about that, really. But it depends how severe the case is.
Okay.
But if they're hospitalized, I've worked with people who have been hospitalized, going in and out of hospital. It's, there's many elements to it.
Okay.
But yeah, to say to somebody in that situation, you will just eat, that's not go. It's not, you have to be very careful there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So identity suggestion is, instead of using specific instructions, you can help people bring about a change in seeing how they see themselves. So what's a new identity you can create? So many people that have been smokers have usually started smoking since they were like 14, 15, 16, since they were young, and they've, become 30, 40 and never seen themselves as a non-smoker. So it's how they see themselves and how the world sees them. So yeah, an example is, because you are now happy and pleased to be a non-smoker, you think, feel and behave as a natural non-smoker. So that the old habit of smoking seems like something that other people do, but you are glad to be free of. And what's with smoking, we will go over smoking in more detail, is that the person was a natural non-smoker anyway. They don't have to try hard to be a non-smoker, because it's naturally, they didn't like their first cigarette. 99% of people, none of them like their first cigarette. So they're just going back to how they used to be. So you can combine a mixture of the two for maximum effect. So we want identity shift, how they see themselves, and those post-hypnotic suggestions of how they will think and feel differently. And this is when we move on to no scripts, because they will tell you how they want to feel. People know. You don't need to make these up. So yeah, deepening your skills. So there's script libraries online. I think, Kathy, I told you about one, Hypnotic World, and there's script for everything. But if our job was as easy as to put people into a relaxed state and give them suggestions and they make changes, and this is why there's so much controversy about hypnosis and hypnotherapy, and does it work and does it not? Because that will work for some people, but for the greatest amount of people, that barrier is too high. And this is why we want to get away from scripts, because you want to focus on what that person is saying and telling you, so that we can handcraft those suggestions based on the conversation that you've had with them, both in and out of hypnosis. So using their words, using their language to just, tell them on a deep level that they already know how they want to feel, but you're reinforcing that on an unconscious level. And most people will tell you, they will come to you and they will say, I know how I want to feel, but I can't make that change myself. I want to feel blah, 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 blah. So they've given you some suggestions right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So today we're going to be doing suggestibility tests, which I've already talked about, but that's the extent to which a person's mind is able to accept just new suggestions. And so Cal Banyan is great. He's an American. He has a podcast, and I remember I used to listen to his podcast a lot when I first started. So if you want a podcast, he's so enthusiastic about hypnosis. He teaches techniques about hypnosis. I found his podcast when I first started and I liked his enthusiasm. I haven't listened to him since, but I think he's still going. I think he's still making podcasts. So here's the suggestibility tests the extent to which a person is able to accept suggestion, which varies according to one's state of mind. The greater the suggestibility that an individual is experiencing, the greater the effect that suggestion offered will have upon that person's perception of reality. In hypnosis, it is possible for people to reach high levels of suggestibility. You're opening their mind, basically. However, it is also important to remember that you actually don't need to have your eyes closed. This is a little bit of a curveball, but if we are focused on our idea, our critical faculty can let it in even if our eyes are open. Hypnotic suggestion can occur. So even in everyday life. So can people think of examples of any waking hypnosis of where we let our guard down if that critical faculty lets things in? Can anyone think of any ideas of waking hypnosis?
Driving?
Sorry?
When you're driving?
Yeah. When you kind of just zone out and you think, how did I get from A to B? And it's your unconscious mind's just completely taken over.
Listening to music too.
Yeah. Yeah, music lets our minds drift. Any time we daydream or we slow down our brain activity slightly.
Watching TV?
Yeah, good. That's a good one as well. Like sometimes as well, we get, I don't know about anyone else, they get so zoned out from the outside world. We really focus on one thing. So it's just a focused on one idea. So if you get a client who's, it will depend on their state of mind and if someone's stressed at work and they're coming to you and you're trying to help them make changes and they're in a busy office and there's lots going on around them and they know they've got to be in a meeting in 10 minutes and this is this, that's not the same environment as somebody who's relaxed in their own space or in a nice relaxing chair where there's, it's a different environment. So it can also change on environments and where people are and times of day. Actually, also what can be quite hypnotizing are things like social media, scrolling.
Yeah.
Especially when we first wake up and when we first go to sleep, our barriers are down. So it can be really important what we let into our minds in those times.
Fiona, what about sleepwalking? My younger brother does a lot of sleepwalking at night. He's got his eyes open and you can ask him to come this way or whatever, or go back to bed and he'll do it. But in the morning, he's got no recollection at all of those conversations. Is that the same kind of thing, same kind of mind state?
Yeah, slightly different. I wonder if you would put him into hypnosis if he'd be aware of it. I wonder.
Yeah, I haven't tried that.
Yeah.
I used to do that when I was younger, but sometimes I wouldn't remember at all, and other times I would have like a vague memory of doing something and being taken back to bed.
Yeah.
But it was always when I was worrying about something.
I mean, it got so bad. My little brother, he went to bed after school one evening, woke up, and then got dressed for school and was walking down the stairs to leave the house. And it was the evening, and he thought he was ready in time for him to go to school. But totally hypnotized, totally sleepwalking, didn't have any recollection of it at all. So it's just very odd, I think.
That would probably be he'd probably be a great subject for, you find sleepwalkers a great subject for hypnosis.
Okay.
I had a client who would wake up in the night and eat go to the fridge and eat and not have any recollection of it at all, which would scare her. But I was just looking for reasons and triggers, and it was a stress coping thing when she was stressed. It tends to not really be about, like I said, the behavior, the symptoms, not really about what it is at all.
But some sleepwalking is due to the both sides of the brain not being completely wired together yet. Okay, so there was actually a neurological reason why specifically younger people sleepwalk. My son was a sleepwalker until the age of 13, every single night.
Oh, wow.
And that was because his brain had not completely wired both hemispheres. When both hemispheres were completely wired and we were focused, we certainly looked at it, he stopped sleepwalking.
Okay, good.
But for his case, it was a neurological, but to the point where all windows had to be locked, all doors had to be locked. It was quite a serious thing that we had to monitor.
Mm-hmm. So what stopped him at the end? Was it just his age?
His brain wired. His brain, both sides of his brain did wire together in the right way, but he was much later than most people. So he had two hemispheres that were not completely wired at birth. When they never are, but his didn't wire as quickly as they should have.
Okay. I've not come across that before. How common is that?
Well, it probably is more common, but most people would not have it diagnosed. My son, because he'd been severely ill, it was diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
So
sleepwalkings can be, especially if there's neurological things going on, but you do find that sleepwalkers can be very good candidates for hypnosis, usually. Okay. So suggestibility tests. So some therapists carry out suggestibility tests just to see how suggestible a client is, how much resistance there is, basically. And you can use them, like we said, as inductions. We did a little bit started going on them. I did one on you the other week. They're great if you're doing a talk. There's one, the book and the balloon, we're going to do today. They're great doing a talk, just because when people say, I can't be hypnotized, no one can suggest me, or blah, 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 whatever they say when you say hypnosis, you can use this as a convincer. It can be used as just to say, well, if you imagine we have magnets here, what would happen? And it can be a nice thing to do with kids as well. Kids like them, they're fun things to do. But they can be great if you're doing talks to lots of people. So I sent you the script for the book and balloon, magnetic hands and magnetic fingers. And I know we've already done them, but we're going to go over them again with a script this time, just so you can practice them on each other a little bit more, with a little bit more guidance from the script, just so you have knowledge of them. And then we're going to go over some cues of hypnosis. Okay, so did everyone get this script?
yes, yeah.
I haven't got it printed out though.
No, don't worry. You can read it from your phone. Are there anyone have any questions?
I need to grab my phone.
Michelle, you've got experience with the book, haven't you?
I've done them all, yes. They didn't, yes, the book and the balloon, that was quite interesting. That worked. I mean, that really was fun. The magnetic fingers didn't work as well.
Okay, was this one you did did you do this last week, or is this just in general?
Oh, I just did it last week.
Oh, okay. We'll try again today.
Yep.
And see how we get on. So there's going to be a group of 3 and a group of 2 again, and we'll probably go for, well, we'll just see how long it takes, really. We can go for half an hour. We're just going through them all, just so we all get a chance to do them, all 3 of them, read all 3 of them, and have them all done to us. In the group of 3, there'll be the observer, and we can also then swap round and do them on each other. But again, it's just getting comfortable giving people instructions as well. So that's what, you know. And this can be done with, try it different ways. You can try, you know, with their eyes open, the magnetic hands, or with their eyes closed. Some people do it with their eyes closed. So you can try a few different, just to see what works, if you want to open their eyes or close their eyes. One thing I would suggest though, when you're doing the magnetic hands, is don't start too far apart, because that's going to take a long time. So it's shoulder width, but they're taking too time. But what we're doing here is we're trying to convince people, and it's easier when you're in person, because you would physically touch the person and you'd say, we have a magnet here and a magnet here for the magnetic hands, and you could let their hands follow. But you can do it online as well. But when you meet each other and want to practice, you can see if it makes any difference when you're in person. Okay, let me breakout room you. I can't remember who's worked with who. If you keep getting put with the same person, do let me know. Okay there, Mike, you've got the invite.
Feel lighter and lighter. And then another balloon, lifting it higher still, getting lighter and lighter, lifting your left hand upward and upward, while the heavy book on your right hand is weighing down your right hand, down and down, getting heavier and heavier. Now I'm placing an even heavier book on top of the first in your right hand. So your right arm is being weighed down and down even further. Meanwhile, I'm attaching another, even lighter balloon to your left hand, lifting it even more, lifting it even higher and higher. In fact, the heavier and heavier your right hand feels, the lighter and lighter your left hand feels. And the more your right arm is weighed down, the more your left arm rises up. And the more your left arm lifts up, the more your right arm is weighed down. Those heavy books pushing your right arm down and down. And those balloons making your left arm lighter and lighter, lifting it higher and higher. Now keeping everything exactly where it is, open your eyes and look at your hands.
Yep.
You're right up in the air, Michelle.
Yep. Yep.
But did you feel it?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
It hurts, doesn't it? It hurts, right?
Yeah. Especially when you put that second
both
book.
of them, Fiona.
The second book, that really did my arm in.
Yeah, it's really heavy, isn't it? It feels much heavier.
It's a good one to do in groups of people, because everyone's always like, oh, I didn't think they would be so far apart.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good one to do. I like that one.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Do you have to use any of the others? You just use the one that you like.
Oh, the magnetic hands ones is good.
Okay, I haven't tried.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Either. Does Lulu want to read one? Or?
Yeah, I can try reading that one.
Okay. Should we do it together again? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, I'll leave you to it.
Do you have to explain what you're going to do?
It helps, because then people understand, well, one, they know what you're going to do with them, and it gives them an idea rather than just completely off the cuff, and then know what's expected of them. And it's good to give them a bit of an induction. You get a bit of compliance as well then.
Okay, so we didn't do that with the book and balloon, but doesn't matter, does it? Doesn't matter. Okay.
You know, with the book and balloon, not as much, but with fingers, it'll tell you in the instructions. You know, you can do a practice run as well, just explaining.
Okay.
And the book and balloon one, no, you probably wouldn't tell people, because you kind of want the factor of, oh, wow, you know, I have taken on those ideas.
Okay.
So, no.
But if when they open their hands and they are in exactly the same place, that just sort of, you know, they haven't moved their arms, or, you know, they haven't actually done anything with their arms, that just proves that they're going to be more difficult to.
There's a lot of resistance there,
yeah.
or they're just very logical thinkers.
Yeah.
They may not even have as many they may not have come to you with any problems, or they may not have as many, you know, things to go through. But you will find most people have. But when you do them in a group, some, you know, the ones you want up on stage are the ones that are here rather than the ones that have just gone like this, because they're the people who are not taking on ideas as easily for whatever reason it might be.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. Or some people are really resisting, like, no, I'm not going to do it. So you test resistance to new ideas, basically.
Okay. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, I have watched the recording. Hi, Fiona.
How are you getting on?
Yeah, we've done the first one. Mike was very good with the book and balloon. I was literally within seconds. Very suggestible.
Me too. I'm always like this. That's good. That's good. It just shows there's less resistance. Your guard's not up about anything.
Yeah.
One question I got, Fiona, is these suggestibility tests, they only work on 6 to 8% of people, I guess. Yeah, is that right?
No. You'll find most people will.
But is that people just going along with the dialogue? Because if you're in a room 1-to-1 and someone's saying there's a magnet on each finger, and like 5 minutes pass and you're saying they're getting stronger and stronger, after a while someone's just going to go like that just because they can't go on for the whole session. Just like that.
Well, like I said last week, if you put your hands together naturally, if you relax, your fingers go together anyway. So if there's resistance, they're resisting for a reason, and you'd look at why they're resisting. If their hands just aren't moving and they're like this, then that would suggest that they're not using any creativity. Well, imagination and creativity are two different things, but they're not using their creativity, and they're either resistant or they have very logical minds. And if they have a very logical mind, then they probably haven't really as many things to work through, fears, worries, anxieties. Does that make sense, that you'd need to go through?
So in the scenario where you're on holiday and you've got a hypnotist and he's trying to get you on stage and he's doing all these tests, does that mean everyone else who doesn't kind of conform are resisting, basically, or they just...
No, it's either people are resisting or they're just not that open. So some people might be like, oh yeah, I can imagine it slightly. They're imagining and they're open to, and some people will be like this.
Right, okay.
So what he'll get on the stage are the ones that they're like this because they're open to ideas.
Yeah.
You tell the people there's a book and a balloon on your hand and they're like this, then if you tell them that you'll fall off your chair or you'll laugh uncontrollably, then they will also potentially get a reaction, more likely to the person that's just not moving.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But it can indicate someone is fighting it and someone's resisting it. Or it's just different ways. I have found it's just people's minds work differently.
Right. Okay.
People are very logical thinkers, and they wouldn't be as, you ask them to imagine and they can't really imagine it very well, or there's lots of reasons. But this is just to see how open to ideas people are.
All right. I interpret it as this is a test to find that 6 to 8%. Everyone else, it doesn't really apply. It's not that then, no?
Well, you will find if people come to you anyway, then, and they're looking for help for a reason, then they're probably suggestible in the fact that they've come to you and you need help with something. It would determine in a room of people who is the most suggestible, but most people's hands will move, but the ones that move the most will tend to be the most suggestible. Or it's just to see how open someone is to new ideas, really.
Okay.
See if there's any resistance, if they're trying to control the situation at all.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Because I remember, when I first started doing this, there'd be people there really, and I was like, are you resisting this? And then that's an issue in itself that you have to work through, the resistance.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Mike.
I quite like the book and balloon one compared to the magnetic fingers. I mean, just personal preference, but
everyone loves the book and balloon one.
Fiona, so I'm just going to do the magnetic hand suggestibility, and I see you say explain first what you're going to do. So you just saying we're going to do a little exercise to see how suggestible you are.
No, you wouldn't tell them you're doing it to see how suggestible they are. We just say we're going to do a little just exercise.
Right.
This is for people who are like, no, I can't, be hypnotized. Hypnosis doesn't work. I'm not one of those people. Just be like, okay, we're going to just do a little exercise. So.
Okay, so I don't need to.
A magnet here and a magnet here in your hands. Yeah. You don't need to explain it.
We say that, right? Okay, fine.
Because then you don't want them to try and manipulate it or change it in any way.
Okay, right. Okay. Right, we'll have a go. Okay, Mike.
Yep.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is a little exercise, and I'm going to get you to imagine that you've got a really powerful magnet on the palm of each of your hands. And then I'm going to ask you to imagine that the magnets are so strong that they're slowly pulling your hands towards each other. And as your hands get closer and closer, the magnets will pull stronger and stronger until they finally meet and your hands touch, and then your hands can fall into your lap. At which point your eyes can close, your head can relax, and you can go deeper into a nice relaxing state of hypnosis. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine with me. Yeah.
Okay, well let's do it then.
So just interrupting, when you're doing that, is that all right? You're gaining compliance already from that person, so they're already saying, okay, yeah, I'm open to that. So that's like a pre-talk, really. That's a level of compliance.
Yeah. Okay, good. Right. Okay, Mike. If you'd like to place your hands out in front of you like this, palms facing each other. Okay, about shoulder width apart. And I'd like you to imagine that I'm placing an incredibly powerful magnet on the palm of each of your hands. Okay?
Yep.
And when I say so, I'd like you to imagine that the magnets are so strong that they're slowly pulling your hands towards each other. Right, and as your hands get closer and closer, the magnets will pull stronger and stronger, drawing your hands closer and closer together until when they finally meet and your hands touch, your hands can fall into your lap.
Yep.
Right, okay. Let's do it then. I think I've done that all wrong, haven't I? Okay.
That's good.
Yeah. Right, Mike. I want you to imagine I'm placing an incredibly powerful magnet on the palm of each of your hands.
Yep.
Okay. And now I'd like you to imagine that the magnets are so strong that they're slowly pulling your hands towards each other. Slowly pulling is so strong, the magnets, they're just going, that's it, going nearer and nearer to each other. They're almost touching, they're so strong. Yes, they're touching. And now, just let your hands fall into your lap. Let your eyes close down and let your head relax forward. And you can go deeper into a lovely, relaxing state of hypnosis.
Should we give him some suggestions while he's there?
Yeah.
Do my coursework.
Mike, I'd like you to imagine you're starting your coursework and you're so enthusiastic about it, you can hardly wait to do it. And it's an absolute joy when you're doing it. You really, really love it. And you do it so easily. You can't believe it doesn't take you long at all. It's such a good experience. You can't wait to get on to the next module.
The feeling of it, doing it, maybe. Yeah, get the
feeling of doing this, the satisfaction. You're so pleased with yourself. You've really achieved a lot by doing this. You're so confident. You're so happy. You've done the best thing by doing this course. It's all going so well. Well done. And now, when you're ready, take a deep breath in, exhale, becoming more aware of your surroundings. Just open your eyes. How do you feel?
I had a good chuckle. Randomly, the mistake actually helped it, because I was like this, and my shoulder muscles begin to ache. So afterwards, I was like, oh, it's quite nice to put my arms down again.
That's the trouble. I was trying to talk and read through, then it suddenly came, right, now we're having a dry run again. Oh.
You went for it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like a holding tension and releasing one. You're holding the tension and releasing it, and you're like, oh, actually, that feels quite nice. It can be a nice induction.
I think, can you remember that like exercise you're a kid and you go like this, then you go like that? Do that for a while. Yeah. After a while, when you put your arms down, you're like, oh, thank God for that.
So nice.
Burning, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so third one.
Okay, so this is you.
Oh, this is the one I don't like, you know, the magnetic fingers.
Oh, the magnetic. Yeah, but that's a quick one, isn't it? Okay.
Ready. I'll leave you to it for a little while.
Am I doing it to you, Kathy, or?
Sorry?
Am I doing this one?
Hello, we're just talking about you.
Oh,
yeah, I was just sort of trying to fathom out, other than like in a sort of group setting thing where you are, you know, trying to get people to understand how it feels, would you ever actually use these?
No, I don't.
No, I don't. That's what I wanted to know.
That's what we thought.
Yeah.
It's good to know them, because when people say, like, you know, suggestibility tests, and there are other tests people can do, the comprehensive ones that researchers use, the Stroop test, the Stroop effect. I don't know if you've heard of that, where it's a colour, and it'll be a blue colour, but it says green, and then there'll be a colour and it says a different colour. Basically, we're just testing somebody's ability to use their imagination. Okay. But if somebody comes to you with a problem, they're already suggestible.
That's what I mean. They're already there.
Yeah.
Open to it. Yeah. So that's what I thought.
It can be, it's fun to do. It's good to know. It's good to, if somebody's really resisting, you know, like when I first learned these, you know, there's lots of people, like if you see hypnotists online and, you know, all these shazzy, they're quite showman-y, will use. So it's good that you know them and understand them and know what they're doing. And if you want to, you can learn, you can watch other people do them and how they do them, and, you know. But I started doing them. People are like, what am I doing? There's something weird going on here. Like there's magnets on my hands. But the only thing is good is seeing if people are resisting or not. Because if someone's there and you're saying, imagine your hands, they're like, that you'd see if someone's really resisting what you're saying to them. So if you have a really difficult client who's not really complying at all, you could say, why don't we do a little just exercise, you know, and then just see how, and then you'd be like, right, I feel like you're resisting, but you'd probably guess anyway. But, you know, if you wanted to test someone resistance, that's when I would maybe use it.
And then if they are resisting, what would you then just take them into the whole, the quite lengthy induction? Would you do that instead?
Well, they'd probably resist that as maybe.
Yeah.
So there's that security guard is really up. So you need to understand why. That's it. Like I said, it's highly unusual, especially if you've got a paying client.
Yeah.
Coming to you, they're paying money, they want to make a change, they've, you know, already seeked you out and spoke to you maybe on the phone before, or there's already a level of compliance. But you know, Michelle, it might be, you know, good for you if you've got troublesome kids who are, you know, you just say, we're going to play a little game here, you know, see, okay, how open, should we just playing a game, and you know, you don't even need to tell them what they're doing. It can be how much they're trying to control that situation. So you'd really see if that kid's trying to take control in some ways. That's maybe when I'd use it on children, because for adults it's a bit like hocus pocus.
Fiona,
yeah,
has it ever happened to you that you've had a client and you just could not work with that person? They were, for whatever reason, although they'd sort you out, they were not open to hypnosis. Does that ever happen to you?
I've had a woman who, there's people who've not had any changes, like who've just had no changes, and they've been really hard to work with. But no, as I've gone through earlier in my career, yes. As you get on, you get ways of breaking down the barriers.
Okay.
You just get used to knowing how to break down those barriers. I find there's two types I can explain, and I'll explain in the main room, but the analytical people, the bankers, will work differently to your creators, like your artists, and say you can tell a lot. I can tell a lot by what job someone does about how their mind works and how much resistance, how I'm going to have to break down any resistance, or how I'm going to work with them. Purely by what their job they're doing. So if someone's an analyst in a bank, their mind is going to work very different to say somebody's a interior designer.
So how does a remedial math teacher at A level and pre-U do? I think we've got analytical written all over our foreheads.
Very analytical mind. Very analytical. But then that could be there still could be an element of creativity, that if there's an issue or some, you just have to work I would work slightly differently, say if somebody was a creative. A very analytical brain, but that's good. But the analytics tend to have a bit more resistance because they think
how strange, but they come. Isn't it weird? It's weird though that they come to see you, but then which is, I mean, to be honest, I'm just thinking, I keep going back to my son on Saturday, who's like, he's a real, sort of, he's not open to this stuff at all. He thinks it's all a load of rubbish, to be honest. And so I was so shocked that he was so easy to work with. But I know it's like because he was relaxed and stuff, but it's weird, isn't it, that it'd be weird for somebody to come and be paying all that money to see you, but then like not be open to it. Do you know what I mean?
Everyone is open to it, and somebody might not be. So somebody might be very analytical thinker now, but when they were a kid and picked up the problem, they went. So it's
Yeah.
not really about how suggestible they are now. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And somebody might not be suggestible now at all, but if they have a compulsive gambling addiction, you know, they can be very logical thinker, critical thinker, and they can get even more frustrated that logically they know they shouldn't be doing that gambling,
Yeah.
yet that's part of their mind, they're still acting on that sense of agency.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're suggestible now, their mind's now it's formed, but back before their prefrontal cortex was formed, they were more suggestible, and that's when they
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's knowing if somebody's more left brain or right brain can help you just determine.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, if you do somebody comes in logical mind, if you start telling them there's a book and a balloon on their hand, they're going to be like, what the hell's going on here? This is a load of cuckoo. You know? So it's just and then so if I get someone, you know, you'd explain the different brains, you'd explain it very rationally to that person.
Yeah.
You need to understand why.
Mhm.
And somebody on the spectrum,
I believe we
so-
all are at some. I believe we all are at some extent.
I do as well, but my son definitely is, you know, and he's sort of got probably what side of the brain would he be? He's quite analytical and he takes everything very literally.
Mhm.
So are those people more difficult again to work with usually?
Well, no, that because I've had a client who used to take everything literally, and he was told by kids at school that his mum was hot, so he'd have these compulsive things he had to say out to his mum that he couldn't be in control of, these intrusive thoughts, saying these inappropriate things to his mum because he just took it so literally.
Okay.
So it's no, I don't think it matters now how suggestible you are.
Okay.
If you were suggestible at a younger
age. Okay.
If people are taking things literally, still they can still pick up beliefs and ideas.
Okay.
That makes sense. Okay, have you got any more to do, or are you guys done?
No, we've done it all now, I think.
I'll just check the other room and then we're probably done. Let me just...
Okay.
Instead of going positive, they went negative. So they felt like they had signs of side effects when they just had a placebo jab. So.
That's interesting. Right. So shall I do the book and balloon test now for you?
Well, the other guys have finished. So how are you?
Oh, we've just done 3.
Okay.
Yeah, we've done all 3, I think, really.
Okay. Are you okay to?
Yeah, because we've discussed it afterwards in depth. So
Okay. Fab. Okay, well, I'll close you all the rooms and I'll see you in there.
Okay, yeah, cool. Okay. Thanks, Kathy.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Hello, Kathy.
You're all right.
Well, I don't know. It's suddenly we swapped.
No,
Something switched.
I think we're all back, aren't we?
Oh,
We're back. Oh, yes, we're all back.
Back in the room.
Oh, we're just having a little chat.
So we were talking then in one of the rooms about how different people's minds work and how you can tell a lot. It's a good indicator. This is my chair squeaking. You can tell a lot about how their mind works if they're left brain logical thinker or right brain creative, usually by their job. So I always like to know what people do. So if somebody's an analyst coming from a bank, you're going to work with them a bit differently to if somebody's creative, say, painter or a designer or something like that. So if somebody's coming to you with a logical brain, you're going to want to explain what you're doing in a bit more depth. And these suggestibility tests talking about books and balloons in the hands would probably be like, well, that's way too, you would approach the whole situation quite logically to explain to them what's going to happen. Even though I like to do that too with creatives as well, but not to the same extent. If I've got somebody with a logical left brain who likes to understand things, reasoning and logic. and we were talking about suggestibility. So somebody may not be suggestible now. That book and balloon may not have moved at all. But that doesn't mean that they haven't picked up any fears or worries in life, because when they were kids, there were times in life that they could have been suggestible, because our suggestibility changes. We are more suggestible, the most suggestible between the ages I have found 5 and 12, 13. And also when we go through trauma, because our barriers come up because we've never been through anything like that before. And we've nothing to refer back to. So that's when we're most likely to be suggestible, when our guard is lowered. When our guard is lowered, new ideas go in. Okay, so any questions about the suggestibility test? I was asked, do I use them? No, is the answer. I don't. But they do. And if you see people doing these jazz hand things, if you see people doing inductions, you now understand what they're doing, what they're testing. And just because someone's suggestible, it doesn't not suggestible. It doesn't mean that you can't work with them and they don't have a problem. And they can't be helped. We're losing people here.
I'm listening. I'm listening. I've just fully got my tea.
Sorry, my cat was having a severe problem with her cat house. I had to save her quickly.
It's something I
can hear you. I could hear you. I was just literally topping at my tea.
Yeah, don't worry. So, like I said, now you know what people are doing. When you can look online and you know, hypnosis, people doing these quick hypnosis inductions or suggestibility, you know what people are searching for now. But again, no indicator of how your session is going to go. You can have the most logical, like I said, the most logical autistic thinker that thinks so logically. Yeah, they just took a suggestion when they were a kid that, you know, stuck with them when they were more suggestible and more creative. So it's no indication really, but it's a good indicator that someone's going to be a good subject to work with. I know I'm mixing my things, but and like I said, if people are coming to you with a problem and they're already there, willing to be helped, you're already there. Okay, so where am I? Here we go. So sorry. If you fill this plastic bottle back up, everyone. It's a reusable one. Okay, so signs and cues of hypnosis. So when people go into hypnosis, changes can occur, and you've probably already started to begin to notice this when you've been practicing on people. It's maybe harder to see online than it would be in person, which is why you always need to see someone's face. And you know, I always want to see people's faces when I hypnotize them online. Some are subtle and some are more obvious, and this is why we want to get you working away from scripts so that you can fully focus on that person and you can see everything that's going on. Yeah, sometimes they're called minimal cues, just signs that somebody's entering a hypnotic change. They don't always happen, sometimes they do, but it's just looking close attention to just when you notice that a change is occurring in somebody, something's changing, their mind-brain activity is slowing down. So rapid eye movement, has anybody noticed that when they've put people, I suppose, Michelle, if you're putting your daughter to sleep, have you noticed her eyes changing in any way?
No. Twitching. I've noticed that twitching.
Yeah, twitching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So twitching, twitching. And when people's muscles start to relax. But you will notice, and that will go on later on, eye fluttering, rapid eye movement.
Snoring.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll just notice these subtle cues. So I'll just go over a few here. So when somebody's in a trance, they're kind of in autopilot mode. So they may look just a bit daydreamy. So they may just start to, so if somebody starts talking and they start just daydreaming of, usually looking to the right, you know, I talked about, we have the left side of the brain, which is our logical, we have the right creative side of our mind. If people start looking to the right, the creative side of their mind, and daydreaming, they can go into that daydreamy stage. So the eyes can get fixated on something. I don't know if you ever noticed someone starts talking about something and their eyes get fixated on something. Can be a sign that somebody's going into hypnosis. So this is when when we're focusing on our hands or our fingers, or, you know, that is actually promoting eye fixation. So you're inducing all these things that put people into that hypnosis anyway. So that's what you're doing. You're getting them to focus. So pupils dilation. So, you know, this is when our eyes are open still, and you can go into an altered state with your eyes open still. So in conjunction with the eye fixation, the pupils might start to dilate. So, and the eyelids, you know, wider as they just focus and they become more relaxed. And it's actually in my anxiety relief toolkit on the app is just focusing on something and let your eyes just blur, actually just relaxes your body anyway. So you kind of trick your body because you're not massively focused on anything. Your defense lowers when your eyes blur out and you soften your gaze. Your defense is lower. So if anybody starts going into deep state, the change in blink reflexes might change. So if somebody's, and this is why we get them to focus. And there is, in one of the books, the Dave Ellman, or one of the older hypnotic inductions, gets people to blink, and you might see some inductions where people are blinking to try and, you know, tap into that change in blink reflex. A really good indicator of if somebody's a good hypnotic subject is eyelid flutter. So some people will come into their office, close their eyes, and as soon as they close their eyes, their eyelids flutter. My mum is one of those that closes her eyes, even when she meditates, her eyelids flutter. I get really good changes with people that show that eyelid fluttering. So, and you will notice when people's eyelids are fluttering that they're in hypnosis, basically. Not everyone gets it, but those who are good candidates will get some movement in their eyes. If people are processing information, you will get that. You may get their eyes going from left to right as they're processing information, as they would as they're dreaming. Mm-hmm. They're just focusing. And things can happen in hypnosis. People can open their eyes. People can half open their eyes. People can have a girl with convulsions before. Like, anything can happen, but you have to kind of just go with it. Mm. It's people's reactions, people unconscious mind. Yeah, the eyeball.
Did you get her to, like, wake up?
No.
But did you not think she was having a fit or something?
No. So she was, it was over Zoom actually, but she was the like, I've had people move before, but she was properly convulsed, like her whole body was like, she was going through something, some kind of abreaction, which we'll go through later, but I just left her to it. Which is, you know, if people start crying and going into things, I leave people to it. I think they need, lots of therapists stop people crying or stop those kind of releases. But you need to let people go through things.
Mm-hmm.
and not be scared of them. Like, I wasn't scared, like as if a lot of people would get scared, and some people half open their eyes. You just can't get scared of anything. You'd have to be confident. Anything can get thrown up at you, anything, and you have to just go with it. It's quite fun. You know, and you don't normally get people convulsing and having big ab reactions, but it can happen. And it's just to be aware that there's nothing to be scared of if somebody's eyes are rolling. You know, eye rolling can be at half opening in their trance. They can open their eyes and close them again. It's just not being scared of anything. Of just letting people do what they need to do, really. You'll notice that people's facial muscles soften, relax when you put them into hypnosis. That's why we say relax your face, soft, smooth, the muscles go soft and smooth. We're promoting these ideas, these cues. Breathing slowing down. We also try to suggest that because that's a sign of going into hypnosis. This is an interesting one, swallowing. So if I see people swallowing, I just give them another deepener. I do another staircase on them, because it shows that they're not actually in hypnosis yet, because when they're in hypnosis, they don't swallow as much, weirdly. So if somebody's swallowing or coughing or moving around, you just need to relax a little bit more. Limpness and immobility of limbs. So we want people to dissociate from their body, really. We want people to focus their attention away from their reality now and their body into their inner world, away from their outer world into their inner world. So people will, you know, experience limpness and immobility, and they might tell you that, but you can just tell them that's completely normal. Just tell them why. It's just because you were away from your outside world and your inside world a little bit. Nothing to be disheartened about or scared about. So this will be for practice, not for now, but using a script, maybe the one that you've written yourself or one that you like, just delivering it and looking for any signs and cues of hypnosis. So the next time, our next practice, just looking for those signs and cues, just being aware of them. Is someone going into that relaxed state, and are they showing any signs of altering their awareness? Okay. So our practice session this week is going to be delivering suggestibility scripts while looking for signs and cues of hypnosis. I'll send over some scripts that you can all start looking through. But that will be putting people into a relaxed state, giving them some suggestibility, some ideas, and looking for cues and signs that they're going into hypnosis. And then next week, we will gain an understanding of the stages of a consultation. So when a client's coming to you with a problem, how do we deal with that? And then putting it all together. So conducting a whole session of the induction, deepener, suggestion, and release. And then have an understanding of a generic suggestions for anxiety and confidence. And then we'll move on to insurance. Okay. And there's different, you notice the different C's and S's. Andrew and I always talk about this. So when you're practicing as a practitioner, it's a C. When you're practicing to practice on someone, you're practicing your skills, it's an S. So I think, isn't that right, isn't it, Michelle?
I just always put a C, but then I'm a math teacher, so I don't know how to spell.
Well, that's the American way of doing it.
Yeah, I just a C.
You're right. If you're practicing the piano, it's an S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're practicing our skills, it's an S. So it's just a difference. If you have a practice, a hypnotherapy practice,
C.
it's with C. If you're practicing as a practitioner, it's a C. Americans just use C for everything. It's in English. It's just something to be aware of if you're telling someone you're going to practice on them. We will use correct English.
Yes.
Okay, so questions, anyone? No? Okay, good.
I think I'm going to miss Thursday again because I've got a shoot and I don't think I'm going to be back on time. But if I can join, I will do.
Okay, well, don't worry. Even if you're a bit late and want to hop in, you're fine.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Or if you're traveling and want to just watch on your phone or whatever.
Yeah, it might be like that.
That's okay. We can accommodate. Just let the WhatsApp. We can let us know just so you're getting that time really.
Okay. Yeah. Exactly. No, definitely.
So it's good to watch the videos, but sometimes it's not quite the same as being there with everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, well done everyone. If anyone's got any questions, you can let me know. Kathy, Michelle, are you two on WhatsApp?
Oh, yes, I'd like to be a WhatsApp.
Okay, can you, do you have my phone number?
Yeah, sorry, I wrote it down. I just got 0773209, 2276, and I just ran out of time, so I'll send you a WhatsApp tomorrow.
To the group.
Yeah, so I will too.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not on Facebook, so
neither.
No.
Okay. Well, the Facebook group's there just in case people need it, but I think the WhatsApp's probably the best.
Okay, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do it now.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
You.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thursday.
Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you Thursday.